Hello, welcome to the Growing Design podcast, where we help you grow your design agency. If you want to learn how to price your services, how to sell your expertise, and how to attract the right type of clients, you've come to the right place. I'm your host, Ed Orozco. Let's get started. Welcome everyone to another episode of Growing Design. Today we have my very good friend Jinny Oh joining us on the show. Jinny, do you mind introducing yourself for the audience?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Ed. Hi, everyone. I'm Jinny, and I'm the founder and CEO of WANDR. We are a product strategy and user experience design firm that's specialized in B2B or enterprise software.
Yeah, and WANDR has a very particular characteristic, and that is that it's 100% remote. WANDR
Yep.
does not have an office. So can you tell us a little bit about, well, first of all, how did you start WANDR? Why? And a little bit of what was going on in your life when you decided to create a fully remote agency?
Sure. So we have been remote for almost 5.5 years now. So pre-COVID days. And the reason why we've always scaled remotely was essentially for my love of traveling and learning new culture. I started Wander, when I was going through a transitional phase in my life. And all I wanted to do was travel. And I wanted to have a job or pursue a passion that was going to allow me to have the freedom and the time to go anywhere, anytime that I wanted to. So, early days of Wander, I was a solo freelancer. I was consulting startups on UX and content strategy. And eventually I started to hire other freelancers that I thought were so much better than me. So I started managing the clients and bringing on other UX designers that had essentially better portfolio than I thought I did, and started to build a team from there. So that was like first year of Wander.
That's very cool. So, guys, WANDR was remote before COVID. Before being remote was mainstream. Um, so, yeah. So, tell us a little bit about that transition of being a freelancer and sort of starting to work with other people, like sort of hiring people who were specialists in the things that you were probably lacking a little bit of experience on.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think my the reason why I started hiring other freelancers was I knew where I fell short. And so I would look at my design work and I always knew I could give more to my clients. And so I started looking for visual designers who can add, a little emphasis to the UX designs that we're creating. So that was kind of my first freelancer that I hired. And then the clients I was working with, they would ask like, "Hey, can you help me develop a website?" So then I would hire a developer. Um, but it wasn't until that I decided to transition from freelancer to uh, wander that I started to see more of my shortcomings, which was delegating my tasks. I felt like I had to do everything and handle all the client communication. So that was a really challenging year. And that was also the year that I found our head of operations, Jenna. So her and I had met. We were working remotely. She was in Canada at the time. And then shortly after, her visa got approved. And it was so funny because the first day our head of operations and I met in person, we decided to look for apartments together to move in together. And so that happened. I think that was 2016, and she helped me to actually incorporate Wander. So we weren't even incorporated at the time, and she took care of all of the administrative and operational part of the business.
That's very cool. How did you decide that you wanted to start working? I mean, you were already remote and you were already working from basically whenever, whatever you wanted. how did you decide to like hire people who were also in the same mindset? Did it ever occur to you to maybe have an office that you would go to eventually, but where your team would be working? Or were you from day one thinking, oh, everyone's going to be remote and there's never going to be an office?
Yeah, that was pretty much day one. I had just moved to LA for the first time after having lived in China, having lived in France. I was literally traveling all over the world. And so for me, it wasn't even an option to stay planted in one place and have an office. Like I knew I wanted to continue to be remote. And the second part, like growing up, like being super international and having to experience all these different cultures, like I knew that I wanted to incorporate that culture and value into whatever I do, whether it's a company or a personal brand or whatever it is. And the third aspect of that is, so I started my freelancing like gig on a platform called Odesk, which is now called Upwork. So I think it was Odesk and Elance merged to create Upwork. So I heard about it from a friend of mine. So I like signed up for it, and that's how I got my first gig. I was like, I think I got paid like $10 to write 3 articles. Like that's not even minimum wage. And I realized, oh, like wow, this platform is full of international talent that you can hire. So I was very excited to see that and see what was even possible. So that's kind of why I've always stayed remote.
What was the process like when you started delegating more stuff to other team members? Because you were mentioning earlier that you were doing all of the project management, you were doing the finances, operations, hiring, everything. So how was that process in which you started first identifying these are the things that someone else should be doing for me or helping me with?
Yeah.
And how, like, what were your main struggles when you were doing that transition?
Oh man, so many struggles, you know. So I guess the first part, it started with Jenna, our head of operations. Like she kind of came to my room one day, and again, we were living together at the time. And she came into my room and she's like, Jenny, you're always stressed out. Like, let's map out what needs to be done so that we can create processes. And I remember her proposing to me to create like these manuals and handbooks for future employees. And I got so upset because I'm like, Jenna, I need you to do X, Y, and Z. I don't need you to spend time creating manuals. And I just thought it was the dumbest thing. Well, not the dumbest. I just thought it was a big waste of time. And now I look back at it and I realize how naive I was for trying to ever stop her from doing that, because that really helps delegate and save a lot of my time and produce processes that were necessary to scale. And I think the other part was hiring more designers and starting to learn from them of how they have handled clients in the past. So, fun fact, everyone: Ed and I used to work together. He was part of WANDR, and Ed was actually the first full-time person that we've ever hired without him working part-time first. I remember like getting off the phone with you and just being super excited and telling Jenna like, I think we have someone that we need to hire right now. So I remember when you came on board, I think I was pretty trusting. And I remember I just like gave you a client and was like, hey, he wants X, Y, and Z. I'll let you handle the rest. I don't know if you remember that. But I think that's what I remember when we were working together initially.
Yeah, I do. I do remember that. Um, and I was actually surprised that so early on I was entrusted with so much responsibility. But at the same time, I was very grateful for the opportunity to kind of like um, do something really good, sort of like trying to like impress the team, impress the client, and hopefully um, making the team build a reputation with that client so that we would get more projects from that person. we're not gonna say the name, but that person did go come back to us uh, several times throughout the years to work with us because he was so happy with what we produce. Um, but yeah, I guess that's part of being an entrepreneur is to take calculated risks where the upside the the upside can have so much impact or so much positive impact in your business, whereas the downside, it's limited. It's like there's only so much you can lose by taking this risk. So I think you had to make a decision and say, I cannot continue doing all of this work myself. I need to start delegating. And you were like, I'm just gonna take a risk with this random guy, and I hope it works.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've had times where we thought like we can do that same process with somebody else and like, hey, here's a client, hey, here's what you need to do. And we've had people who have completely uh, dropped the ball. So definitely calculated risk. But I mean, so far the ROIs have been really great.
Yeah, that's really great. Um, did you encounter any pushback or sort of um, an attitude of maybe lack of trust? I don't know if trust is the right word, but were
Yeah.
you like trying to sort of justify yourself in front of clients because the team was all international and you didn't have an office? Remember, guys, this was a
Oh,
long time ago,
yeah.
so remote work was not as popular as it is today, and there was no COVID, so people still were coming to work with the mentality that you have to have an office, you have to work 9 to 5, you have to like see your work colleagues every single day in person. So did you ever find like you had to like sort of like prove yourself
Yeah.
to your clients because
Oh,
of
yeah.
those reasons?
Yeah, it was always an uphill battle. And definitely, we were definitely pioneers. And it's funny because I'm sure like people hearing this now are probably like, oh, yeah, remote work. Like, yeah, that's great. No, this is like 5, 6 years ago where remote work was not a possibility or it was new. People were very skeptical about it. People were skeptical about offshore teams. And most of the development companies that are in this industry are outsourcing to Southeast Asia, where they've been burned by their processes before, or there's language barriers, or things are taking way too long, longer than expected. So we've talked to a lot of leads and clients who have gone through that experience of working with offshore companies, and so we had to like re-educate them of, one, we're not offshore. We never brand ourselves as offshore. We are a global company. We like people who have different cultural and work backgrounds. And it's that diversity that adds to the WANDR uniqueness and the unique selling point, and the value that we add back to our clients. But, it's about educating them about what that actually means. And the second part is, what is remote work? Like, how are you guys even efficient? How can we even hold you guys accountable? Accountability is a big word when it comes to remote work. So, it was a lot of the focus had to be about our process, what it meant to be remote and how we communicate with each other. And the second part, really introducing our team as an asset versus a liability. So I would say those have been like the two biggest things that have become significantly easier this year in 2020 and 2021. Trying to explain that, people are like, oh, but it was like a complete flip of a switch. Like before, we would kind of like not hide, but we would be we would kind of skim around the topic of us being remote. And now we're like out of the closet. We're happy and proud to say that we have been a fully remote company since day one. So yeah.
Yeah, and now it's cool. Now everyone's doing it.
Yeah, now it's cool. Now we're trendsetters.
So WANDR was definitely a pioneer. Did you find that you had to like come up with new processes to do the same type of work. I Because you mentioned that development has been, I think the development work sort of like, or developers started working remotely years and years ago. But I feel like design has always been very collaborative, which I think is a key difference between design and development. In design, there's a lot of collaboration and communication with the client and stakeholders, and that's fundamental to do the good design work.
Mhm.
So you sort of had to like create processes for adapting what was happening in a whiteboarding session, and do that remotely. And that, I assume, I know, but I'm, for the sake of the conversation, I'm gonna assume that you had to teach your clients and you had to show to your clients, look, this is possible, this is how we do things, and sort of like convince them to like at least open their minds and like try to to like give you a chance to like run this process completely remote.
Yeah. Now, yeah, like I said, it's been a lot easier because everything is remote, so it's not like they have any other choice. But in the past, we've had clients who wanted to work with us in person, so location has been really important. We've had clients who flew into LA to work with the team here. So we would have somebody like from LA that's leading the project while the designer is abroad. So it's been a lot easier for us to just host all of these collaboration online. And I would say I'm super excited because I would say like we have like not perfected, but it's been a really really good experience for us to really refine online collaboration, especially the onboarding and the kickoff of the project. I think a lot of our earlier years issues have always been that client onboarding. Like during business development, we would hear one thing, and then a production team would hear another thing, and then what's delivered is something else that the clients are not expecting, and then there's issues there. And so by magnifying like what's going on, and also adding to the fact that everything is remote, and so you have to like over communicate, we've really been able to identify and create better processes for one, client onboarding, and then two, that online design collaboration. So we spend an enormous amount of time between the sales and the production team now during the pre-kickoff, kickoff, and that first month to make sure that everyone is has the same expectations throughout, and also hosting these workshops. Like we'll have like 5 hour remote workshops just for the clients to align with our team, brain dump on what their expectations are for this collaboration, and also their product vision, what they know about the products, what assumptions we're operating under that we need to test out, solutions ideating, and all of that is 100% online.
Yeah, the discovery and alignment parts of the product development cycle requires a lot of conversations and a lot of understanding with the client. Um, so it, I think that's one of the trickiest part to like move from, in-person workshops to online, because the amount of back and not back and forth, but the amount of conversations that have to happen. Um,
Hmm.
but it seems like the WANDR team already figured out a way to run these remote kickoff and initial meetings to get
Yeah.
the entire download and like understand what the client's goals are, understand the market, understand the customers. Tell us a little bit about those 5 hours kickoff. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know if people are very excited of going to a Zoom call for 5 hours. How do you manage that?
Yeah, we make it fun, honestly. Like we spend a good half hour just doing intros and icebreakers, building that trust with the clients. And every activity that we do is like one, we show the clients like what is the objective of each activity, and they're very open to it because they're like, oh yeah, like this is a lot of value before we even dive in. We like to use a tool called Miro or Miro. which is like an online whiteboard. And so everybody gets their like sticky notes and they type in their answers and they get like a limited amount of time to respond to each question. So, for example, we'll ask something um, like, uh, what are your roadblocks, or what are your like what's stopping your users from doing X, Y, and Z, like things like that. And towards the end of it, like we also summarize like, hey, here's what we've learned from you. But oh, I forgot to mention, we also have like breaks in between. So it's not like 5 straight hours we want your full attention. Like we'll have 15-minute breaks, like turn off your camera, turn off your mic, or 1 hour lunch break in between the 2.5 hour sessions. So you can go grab some food or take another call or something like that. So it's not exhausting, and it does feel like a real in-person workshop, or we try to make it as close to that as possible. So yeah.
Do you have any set of rules that you give your clients, like maybe turn off your phone
Yeah.
or turn on your camera, things like that?
Yeah. Of course we can't enforce it, but we try to make it fun. Like, hey, like I think I see you on your phone, or we want to see your beautiful faces, so let's turn our cameras on. Something like that. So we'll give a first warning, but it's our clients, so we don't want to like enforce it if they want to keep their phones on. But for the most part, everyone's been pretty good. Like they are, I mean, I think it's because they know they're paying good money for us to host the workshop, so they're fully attentive.
Yeah, I think it has to be quite an experience for most of your clients the first time they receive the email, or they talk to your team and say, oh yeah, we're gonna do a kickoff call on Monday and it's gonna be 5 hours, so you have to block out the entire day. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, there's no way we're gonna have a 5 hour meeting. And then
Oh,
um
well,
yeah.
people are not very resistant about it at all. Like we've never heard anyone being like, "Oh, that's too long." And the other part is like I mentioned, we're always refining our process. So we've went back to doing a 1 hour kickoff. So in this kickoff, we have our business development team and our production team just to meet with the actual team for the first time, and also for the salesperson to go over what was written in our scope of work so that everyone is fully aligned on what's actually signed in the contract. Everybody agrees. Great. And next week, we're going to host a 5 hour workshop, and here's the agenda for it so that you know what you can be expecting. But yeah, last year we were just putting everybody straight into the 5 hour workshop, and we realized it's a lot.
Yeah, but now you're sort of giving them a teaser,
Yeah.
and telling them, so this is sort of what's going to happen next week, and
Yeah.
they know what to expect. Can you tell us a little bit about the transition between the business development side of the process and then discovery and production? Because I think there's something really important here, which is during the sales process, your team is already having a consulting role. It's already helping the client define
Mm.
their problem, figure out what they need, understand what are the constraints of the technology. So can you tell us a little bit about how you train your business development team to guide the prospect that's going to turn ultimately into a client, and how do you create that smooth transition between the sales part of the process, which I think we can consider part of the design process and the
Mhm.
customer experience, and how they go and start working with the delivery team.
Yeah. So, since you've been part of our sales process, it's funny because I had many hats at WANDR. He started out as a designer. Then he was our strategist and he was doing sales. And then I think before you left, you were doing marketing. So he's done the full spectrum of work from design all the way to sales and marketing. And, the reason why I guess we're talking about this is because a lot of balls have been dropped between what's discussed during the sales calls to the initial kickoff. And now what we've introduced in our process is for our business development team to just uh, they're selling discovery as part of our process because we realized there was a lot of drop offs. Like our proposals are now anywhere between 60,000 on the low end to upwards of like $500,000. That's a pretty big check for someone to just kind of roll the dice and say this is the team. So what we've been doing is introducing $4,500 discoveries. So it's a very small buy-in for the clients to get to know our team a little bit better, and for us to also understand what's the core problem that we are trying to solve and what's the realistic timeline that it's going to take our team to solve that issue. And you're not going to get that on a sales call, no matter how many times you talk to the clients. We have to like look under the hood, look at the product, and also look at the market. Like clients might be telling us one thing, but what is the market telling us? And we're not going to discover any of that during the sales call. So we train our business development team to ask as much question as possible to our clients. So on the first call, they have a questionnaire that they have to go through. So if you are a lead, you might actually not even know that we have a questionnaire from the other side, because the conversation is pretty smooth and free flowing. But on the WANDR side, we actually do have a scripted questionnaire that the team has to go through. And that just allows us to see how much our leads actually understand what their problem is and why they're trying to solve it with design. Um, and and then afterwards, like let's say like we've closed the sale, they're happy with their team, and they want to go through the discovery. Internally, we also go through a lot of processes. So we go through 2 rounds of internal kickoff. So the first one, we go through what the client expectations are. Again, lots of expectation setting because we want to over communicate that. What are their goals? What are their success metrics? What are they expecting out of this final deliverable? Any other information that the sales team knows about the clients? And then on the second kickoff, by the second kickoff, the production team should have looked through all the documents that were prepared and then come with any questions that they have for the sales team before we go into the client external kickoff. So a lot of processes to go from sales and production, but that's only because we've gone through so many ups and downs of that.
Yeah, you learn from all of these experiences. I don't think the client even knows all
No,
of the work that goes
no.
into preparing the kickoff, like all of the work that's happening behind the curtains to prepare the team to tackle the project, which is actually pretty exciting. And probably some other agency owners and freelancers listening to this might be wondering, like, what happens when the client says yes, I want to work with you, and until you start actually doing the work.
Yeah.
But you should be taking some notes, because you should not be just sitting around and waiting for everything to happen in the kickoff. Preparation is key. The more you understand the problem ahead of time, the more productive those initial conversations are going to be.
Yeah. Our current COO, who was our current COO would always say, failure to prepare is preparing to fail. And it's so true, especially when it comes to client communication, client kickoffs, and so on. But yeah, they have no idea what's going on behind the scenes, because a lot of times they'll say, can you guys start next week? It's like, we can, but that's not setting you up for success.
Yeah, it's not in your best interest.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if you guys do that, but like, do you ever share all of this with the client, or they have no
Yeah.
idea?
We try to share, like we tell them like, hey, we need 2-week lead time, and they think it's a lot because everyone always wants to start yesterday. So again, it's just about education, like letting them know, like, hey, like we're trying to set you up with the best team that's suited for what your product and your industry. So we got to make sure that there's a client team match. And then two, we also have to onboard the team so that they know what's going on.
Yeah, go slow to go fast.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very great. Okay, so we've talked about how the WANDR didn't have an office. I do have some insider information, and I know that at some point WANDR had an office,
Yeah.
a tiny office. Can you tell us what you guys were storing in that office?
Yeah. It was a it was one of those WeWorks two-person office. And the backstory of that was like there was this guy that I met at an event, and he had won some like founder award from WeWorks that allowed him to have the WeWorks office space for like, I don't know, maybe like $6,000 a year. And he's like, hey, it's a two-person office. Do you want to share it with me? So I think we ended up paying like $3,000 for the entire year to have that little two-person cedar office. And I was never in LA. I was never home, so I didn't even use it. And that was the only time we've ever had that little office space. But that location ended up being our permanent mailing address. But I do have an update. WeWorks closed down that office location, so we're going to have a new. We have to have a new mailing address, which I'm really bummed about because we've been there for 5 years.
Oh yeah, that sucks. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's not surprising given the COVID crisis and the WeWork crisis that
Yeah.
happened before the COVID crisis. So it
Yeah.
only makes sense that WeWork should start to shrink.
Yeah.
Um, so funny.
I
What were you using the office for? It's just
Nothing. I
for
mean,
letters.
well, so for one for mail, but two, two we just kind of pretended like that's like our big like our home or not home office, that was like our office for the whole company. So we would have client meetings from time to time. We wouldn't show them that it's a two-person office. We would just invite them over to WeWorks. And it's so funny because that going back to my first year of like freelancing and transitioning into the agency, I had this one client that had a really beautiful office space in Westwood, and I would have my sales meeting in his office during that first year. So many little startup hacks, it's part of the journey.
It's funny that even though the company was entirely remote, you still had a physical address in
Yeah.
LA to sort of like make it look like, look, we
Yeah.
actually have an office. And that you had to like that for some people is important. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm telling you that we're 100% remote. We don't have an office. Everyone works from home or from the beach or from whatever they want. And some clients would still feel like they needed to see the address
Mm-hmm.
to feel like they were working with an actual company.
Yeah.
Again, this is pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Being remote was not so popular.
Yeah.
Um,
It was incredible. That's how I would say it. Like a company would not have credibility if it didn't have an office, and how big that office was, which is, ridiculous to think. And it's so funny because we've had clients who would physically send a check, and there were times where I wasn't home or like I wasn't in LA, and I would have to fly back just to process that check.
this was this century, you
Yeah.
guys. This didn't happen in the 90s. This
Yeah.
happened recently. Um, the funny thing is that how little impact the office has, or actually doesn't have any impact at all, in the quality of the work, in the
Yeah.
quality of the professionals that are delivering the work, in the quality that the team produces.
Hmm.
It literally has no impact whatsoever. Um, but still, it's sort of like you kind of had to have it. So like, here's the little hack for the audience if you want to do this in a distant future in which COVID is not a thing anymore. Um, you can just get a virtual office or like a virtual address. There's a lot of companies that do that for very little money. I think for like $10 or $20, you can get an address. And I think some people still consider those things important. But now you know that, it's
Yeah. And I think some people would say like, oh, but that's like how we build company culture. We have a ping pong table, we have free lunches on Fridays. And honestly, those are all great, but I would say like those companies are creating like environments for people to create culture. But I think what's special and unique about remote culture is when you do get together in person, and I highly recommend if you're remote to host regular retreats, that when you host these retreats, like people like they love seeing their coworkers in person for the first time, or or seeing their faces again. Like they create real bonds because they realize they have a very short limited amount of time to bond with each other, so they want to know everything. They want to be friends, like they want to like actually take the time to get to know you, versus if you see a coworker every single day, you might not have that personal bond with them as you would with remote companies that host retreats. I don't know. What do you think, Ed? Like you've been to all of our international retreats.
I think it's a very interesting phenomenon because usually when you start working in a physical office and you're the new person, you start meeting some people either because they have coffee at the same time that you have coffee, or you sit together for lunch, or for whatever reason. So kind of like during the first months, you're still trying to get to know people as you start working with them. But when you are 100% remote, you start working with them before you meet anybody. And typically when you connect with people is because you're already in a project together. So it sort of like builds that connection before there's a physical presence, which doesn't happen when you're working in person. So when you finally get to see those people in person for the first time, it's like you've known them forever. It's like you probably have been working with them for a while, but like the first time you see them, it's like, oh wow, it's the first time I see you guys, but I feel like I know you. It's a very, very sort of magical feeling.
Yeah, yeah.
So can we talk a little bit about remote culture? Because I I've seen that some people still feel like to build culture, you need to have the ping pong table and beer on Fridays. How's culture in a remote setting?
It's definitely more, I'm going to keep emphasizing this. It's more personal because you can't see the body language. You can't always, uh, you just don't see the person. So what you do express, it comes from the heart, comes from the personal experiences that you have that you want to share. Um, so yeah, I mean, I love it. Like, so what we do as a company to keep encouraging people to share is little things that don't even cost us anything. Like, for example, um, you were part of this. Change your Slack profile photo to your cutest baby picture that you have. Everybody changes it. It's like, oh, that's super cute. We have like monthly competition. So like, how many burpees can you do in a row? Or where's the favorite place that you've ever traveled? Now we're doing monthly team calls, and we ask everybody to like dress up. So January we did like winter wonderland. So everybody dressed up in like, I don't know, the Snow Queen or Bernie, or a snowman, and people go all out for that. And today we actually had another all team meeting, and today's team was like St. Patty's Day, and I always get so shocked at how elaborative these costumes or these dress up become. So I'm like so happy about it.
That's so cool. So yeah, I think it's
Oh,
important to you want to say something?
yeah, sorry. One more thing to add. We get really good with icebreakers because it's part of our workshops with our clients. And so like some of the icebreakers, that one of my favorites I would say is, what would the 10-year-old what would your 10-year-old self tell you now, or what advice would your 10-year-old self tell you right now? So things like that. So it gets pretty personal. And we do that with our clients too. So it's like, oh, yeah, we're really getting to know each other.
That's so cool. Yeah, because you are so this icebreakers are activities that you do on a regular basis because they're part of your culture. Since you don't have the ping pong table or the water cooler or the coffee machine, you create these activities and these spaces for the team to bond.
Mm,
And all of these activities then end up sort of like fueling the imagination of the team on what can be done to sort of like familiarize yourself with the client, and for the client to get to know the team, and for the client to like start like seeing the fun part of the team and like open up a little bit more to the idea of working 100% remote.
exactly.
That's so cool. I love that. Let's talk a little bit about um, when you were starting to formalize processes, you came up with this tremendous intellectual property, we can call it, on how to like communicate remotely, how to deliver work, how to do this discovery and alignment processes. That took you a lot of like trial and error to put together. As you started to put these processes in place, um, what was the process like when you were hiring new people and you had to train them into these things that probably were new for them because they were coming from the traditional model of going to an office?
So your question is, how do we start to hire and train people with the new client communication?
Yeah, how do you like teach them your ways?
Yeah. Again, onboarding. I emphasized earlier how important client onboarding is. It's also very, very important on the employee side. So, for 2 weeks straight, it's continuous training and reviewing materials of how we do things, and how we like things to be done, how to communicate with clients, and we also have continuous training. Our COO is really, really big on proper client communication. For example, this is like super easy, but not a lot of people do it. And we really emphasize is once you have a video call, like one, don't forget to send the agenda before you get into the meeting. So, that agenda should also clear up like who doesn't need to be in a meeting. Because I think a lot of people waste time sitting in meetings that they don't even need to be in. So setting that agenda will help. Two, after the meeting, make sure you send out an email confirming and summarizing everything that was discussed. So that way it's in writing. And I think one of the things that we've learned in our trial and error is that we think that just because we're recording a call, that we're going to go back and reference to that. A lot of times you don't because you have like hundreds of recordings when everything is remote. So it's important that you have everything in writing and all the parties that were involved receives that email. So little things like that actually go a very, very long way. So we just kind of emphasize to everyone if someone forgets to do it, we just kind of remind them like, hey, don't forget to do X, Y, and Z. Again, over communicate.
When you're onboarding new people, do you have any tips on how to, or things that you've learned on like how to discover if the person is going to be a right fit, or like little things that you have sort of like intuitively discover on how to like determine if someone's going to be good for the job or not?
Yeah, that's even before the onboarding process starts. So, when we're interviewing someone, we're always referencing back to our core values. And you were there with us right before you left, in helping us create those core values. And literally, we will hire and fire people. And evaluate their performance based on these five core values, because that's kind of like the DNA of what makes a person on our team a true Wanderito or whether they're just not a good cultural fit. So, all the questions that we ask during the interview process does one way or another revolve around these core values.
I think that's so important for all kinds of companies. Actually, is know who you are as a company, have a set of values that represent the ethos of your organization, and be very firm about them. Because if a
Yeah.
person, doesn't matter how technically good they are at what they do, if they don't fit within your values, sooner or later there's gonna be conflict.
Yep. Yeah. It's like adding like black paint into a pond of white paint. Like it's going to become harder and harder to take that coloring out.
Yeah. And what's your favorite Wonder value?
Oh, wait, let me go back to, I'm going to pull it up because
You have a cheat sheet?
I have a cheat sheet that I have to reference because they're all very good. Let me see.
Also, you revised them recently.
We did. We just went through a whole process of redoing them. So we had, I think, 10 or 12 core values between 2016 and 2020. And we brought in a consultant who has helped us set up traction and help us create all of these new core values. My personal favorite, can I give you two?
You can give me three.
I can give you three. Okay. I'd say my first favorite is the growth mindset. So someone who's always open to trying something new, even if it's uncomfortable, and they have this insatiable curiosity to explore and never stop learning and improve who they are and their skills, and being open to feedback. So that's our growth mindset core value. And then my second favorite is a core value called no fluff. So that means each individual Wanderito has their unique geekiness. So they're like super passionate about their work, and they're enjoyable to work with. They have the ability to make Monday a fun day, and they aren't afraid to share their personal passion to the WANDR team. And I would say the third one that I'm going to call out is accountability. I think that's really big, just from the business perspective, and also team dynamic perspective. Like we're looking for someone who has the ability to lead and set examples, and really importantly, like someone who's able to follow up, and they own what they say they're going to do. They hold integrity to their work, their time, and how they represent themselves. And they know how to prioritize their work and get things done on time. And I think that's really important because a lot of times people will say like, yeah, I'll get X, Y, and Z done for you. And then they miss the deadlines. And it's like, why? So someone who's accountable is very, very important.
Yeah, especially when you're working remote, you don't have a supervisor. I'm not saying this is the reason you should be productive and do what you're supposed to do, but when you're working remote, you don't have a supervisor looking over your shoulder to see if you're being productive or if you're like, playing video games during work hours. So it's very important for those of you trying to hire people remotely that they need to be accountable for their work. They need to have a high level of integrity, and they have to be very responsible for what they do, because you don't have the same amount of contact with them as you would in a physical office. So you cannot actually be like making sure that they're being productive. That's accountability and trusting your team. I wanna clear out the term Wanderito. Can you explain what a Wanderito is?
A single Dorito chip. No, it is the name given to someone who works at WANDR. So you can be a Wanderito, or this is so funny because we've always called everybody Wanderito until we brought in this new strategist who she's Argentinian, currently living in Mexico, and she started calling herself a Wanderita because she's Latin. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So now we have Wanderita. Exactly. Now we have Wanderitos and Wanderitas.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, because originally I think Wanderito was supposed to be like the Spanish station of the word wonder. You also mentioned something that I don't think the audience is familiar with, but I think it's super important. You brought a consultant to apply the traction methodology, which I think is it's a great tool to kind of like finish giving shape to an organization. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is? This is not sponsored by them, but I think it's a very important tool for people to look up if they are interested in it.
Yeah, you should get it sponsored by them because what I'm about to say about them is awesome stuff.
It's
So,
gonna get them some sales.
gonna get them some sales. Yeah. So we were working with a consultant who was implementing traction, or it's also known as EOS, which stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. And they are a complete game changer. So you have different consultants or what they call implementers that implements this EOS system, which is a way for you to, I guess it's just a way for you to like evaluate and look at your company in a completely different way and operate it in the most efficient way possible. So we brought in that consultant back in September, and my goodness, it has been one, it's been a game changer, but it's also created an enormous amount of changes in the organization. So, in the 6 month time since we started implementing this, we have had a lot of Wanderitos leave, including yourself, Ed. But we've also brought in a lot of amazing new talent to the company as well. So uh, it's been a transitional phase, nonetheless, but all for amazing reasons. Like myself, I have never felt this de-stressed in my life. I feel really good. I have a lot more time on my hands. I'm working super smoothly with my leadership team, and revenue numbers wise, it's also reflecting that as well. Like I was telling you earlier that this time last year, we're doing 3 times as much as we did. So yeah, all the numbers are showing.
Yeah, triple your revenue year to year. It's not something that happens every day.
Yeah.
It's a really good thing. So congratulations. What would be like the number one thing that you would say has been the benefit of working with Traction slash EOS?
Um, I would say two things. One would be the accountability chart. So they don't call it's kind of like an org chart, but it's not really an organizational chart because it's not someone reporting to another person. The way that they structure it is who's actually accountable to deliver what they say they're going to deliver. So, for example, the production director is going to be accountable for having performance reviews for their department. They are accountable for making sure that all the projects are delivered on time. So all that accountability falls on that one person. So restructuring our accountability chart has been huge, and it's been very painful, but it's just been an amazing experience. We brought in some really smart people. And then the second part are actually I have three things. So the second thing is 90-day rocks. So what that means is every 90 days, the leadership team, we meet together with the consultant to go over what did we do last quarter? What were the goals that we set last quarter? Um, did we meet those goals? If not, what happened? Why did it happen? What were the conflicts? And then we also set new 90-day goals, and we divide that with who's accountable for achieving each of those goals. And then the third thing that's super important is how we structure our weekly leadership meetings. So we call these the L10 meetings. It's formatted as 90 minutes, and it ends right after 90 minutes. So we start with 5 minutes of good news, 5 minutes of scorecard, which means all the numbers and data that are important to track on your company. How are you doing those week to week? Have the numbers gone down? Why? And you start jotting down all the issues you have for another section of the meeting. So it's 5 minutes good news, 5 minutes scorecard, 5 minutes of customer and employee headlines. So good news or bad news involving your team and customers. Then we go into last week's to do. So what you said you're going to do last week, did you do them? If not, what's wrong? And then we go into a section called IDS, which stands for identify, discuss, and solve. So you talk about all the issues that have happened that week. Why did it happen? What's the solution? Then you do 5 minutes of what to dos for this week. And then you rate the meeting, which is also very important. So you have to uh, rate if that meeting was efficient. If the numbers go below 8, then why? Then what happened? Did somebody start late? Did we end the meeting? Do we end the meeting late? Do we not? Do we just ramble on? Things like that. Sorry, I'm talking a lot. And then the third really important thing, which I kind of briefly went over during the L10 meeting format, is the scorecards. So this is, you get to see on a week-to-week basis all the important numbers that are affecting your business. So this isn't just, are you bringing in revenue, but you're seeing everything from your website traffic, bounce rate, number of clients that you spoke to, customer issues, anything and everything that you can measure in your company. You should be looking at that on a week-to-week basis. And so those three things have, I would say, changed how we run the company.
It seems like the common thread is accountability.
Yeah.
Like it puts a strong emphasis in accountability, which I think that plays really well with the whole remote concept and the remote culture. Okay, so this is gonna be my last question. If you could go back in time and see yourself starting WANDR year one, what would be your advice to first year Jinny?
That's a good question. First year Jinny, I'm going to go back on the accountability. First year Jinny would hire the 3 key people in her leadership team. So those would be seats that she needs to fill, which is the finance and operations seat, the production/delivery seat, and the third is sales and marketing seat. Go fill those 3 items first, and then the rest would be smooth sailing. Jinny didn't figure that out until year 5, so
Well, it's better late than never.
Yeah.
I think that's a tremendous piece of advice. Make sure that you have the key areas in your company covered by competent, accountable people, and that's going to help you run your company more smoothly. Jinny, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really great to revisit the story of WANDR and all of these fantastic adventures that you've lived in this past 5 years. I knew some of them I didn't. So this is also news for me, and it's been really, really great to hear them. Where can people go to find more about the work you do with WANDR and about what you do as an entrepreneur?
Sure. We're redoing our website, but you guys can visit us on our website at www.wandr.studio. You can also find me on social media. It's Jinny Oh. So it's JINNYOHH across all the social media platforms.
Awesome. What's the one social media platform where you're more likely to respond, if any?
I'd say Instagram.
Instagram?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. It's been a huge pleasure to have this conversation with you. And thank you again for taking the time. It's been a lot of fun. And I'll talk to you very soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed.